Colorado Buffaloes still have a path to the Big 12 title and the college football playoff. It just got a little bit more complicated.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Borba. Today's episode is brought to you by our sponsors over at FanDuel. You could start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets. If you win your first $5 bet, visit FanDuel.com to get started. We are also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcast. So make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. Let's dive right into it, right? We all know what happened this past weekend. If you live under a rock and you don't, well, let me alert you. The rest of the college football world got to smile a little bit because, they prey on Colorado's downfall. And Colorado lost. And not only did they lose, they got blown to smithereens. They went to Kansas City, Missouri, took on the Kansas Jayhawks at the Arrowhead Stadium, which is where the Chiefs play. And they met a man by the name of Devin Neal, and he ran all over them. He ran for 207 yards and 3 touchdowns, and the Kansas Jayhawks won 37-21, giving Colorado or derailing what looks like a very, very simple and clean path to the college football playoff is now much more complicated. But with that being said, I'm here to tell you, Colorado fans and people who maybe hate Colorado and don't want to see them make the Big 12 title or the playoff, there's still a chance that they can. Let me break it down for you. So the Big 12 title, or the Big 12 title, the Big 12 title for sure, is up for grabs. The Big 12 conference, as I was trying to say before I word souped myself, is a little bit congested right now. Right now, there are 4 teams who have 6-2 records in conference play. In total, there are 6 teams that have somewhat of a shot at making it. With the outliers, it gets really complicated once you get to like the teams after Colorado, which are Baylor, Kansas State. But here's what we need to know, right? So with there being 4 teams tied at 6-2, Colorado still has a chance to win. They have a chance to win their last game, but they need to win their last game, and they still have a chance to make it to the college football playoff. Here's what each team needs. So if all of those teams, if the 4 teams who are tied at 6-2, which again is BYU, Arizona State, Colorado, and Iowa State, if they win out, it's going to be Arizona State and Iowa State based on tiebreakers. If they don't, if that doesn't count for the losses, so obviously if a team loses, if a team gets a 7-2, they're automatically in, unless the other teams lose, right? So like say Arizona State and Iowa State lose. If Colorado and BYU win, boom. So if any 2 teams end up at 7-2, they're in. So as for Colorado, they need 2 of those teams to lose. Colorado need 2 of the remaining 3 teams to lose, and that's the same for Iowa State, BYU, and Arizona. Sorry, it's very complicated. So if you're a Colorado fan and you want them to make it to the Big 12 title game, you want Iowa State and BYU to lose, you want Iowa State and Arizona State to lose. It doesn't matter. You want one of those teams to lose. I'm going to go through each of those top 3 teams and sort of say who's the most vulnerable, because I think there's one glaring obvious one. That would be Iowa State. They are going to be hosting Kansas State, who is 8-3, probably should be ranked, but I guess we'll find out tomorrow. Kansas State was ranked number 6. They were ranked as high as 16th in the country before they lost to Arizona State by 10 the other day, or 2 weeks ago now. So I think Kansas State has the best chance of upsetting Iowa State. Iowa State has the best chance of getting upset. The ESPN FPI gives them a 45.8% chance of winning, and they're only 3-point underdogs, which, as we know, Kansas was a 3-point underdog. So 3-point underdogs is basically just like, hey, you have a slight advantage, right? So Kansas State or Iowa State's the team that I think is most susceptible to losing. Then it's between BYU and Arizona State. Arizona State's playing Arizona on the road. They have revenge on their minds. They have an angry Kenny Dillingham, and they have a fan base, that is reinvigorated. It reminds me a lot of Colorado's, where Arizona State was in the basement of the sport. The fan base, to more of an extent, I think Colorado's fan base is all fan base always made sure to support. Arizona State was not. Like, they were not supported at all. Their games were often played in front of like half empty stadiums. The fan base was dwindling. Kenny Dillingham himself said they needed more fan support. Well, now they're winning and they're getting that fan support. And last year, Arizona beat the brakes off of them, so they want revenge. They're a much better team than Arizona is this year. I think they win. So that leaves me to BYU hosting Houston. And this is exactly the kind of game that Houston would win, right? Houston, I think, quietly had one of the best end of Octobers through Novembers in college football. So they take down Utah, which that was like the final nail in the coffin for Utah. They upset Kansas State. They lose by 10 to Baylor, which Baylor happens to be a really good team. And now they're playing a BYU team who is not looking as good as we thought, right? BYU just lost to Arizona State. They lost to Kansas the week prior. They only beat Utah off of controversial calls and a heroic last-second field goal. They beat UCF pretty handily, but before that, it was Oklahoma State by 3. So this BYU team has shown to be susceptible to sort of, I don't want to say playing down to an opponent, but they're not handling everybody like Colorado was before this Kansas game, right? Colorado was coming in there, taking your lunch money and smacking you in the head on the way out. BYU has kind of just been just rock fighting their way to the finish line. And so I think of those 3 teams, Kansas State, or excuse me, I keep saying Kansas State, Iowa State, and BYU are the teams that are most likely to lose. So if you're a Colorado fan and you care about the Buffs making it to the playoff, you want to see Miss Peggy go to a playoff game or even the Big 12 title game, more importantly, first, you'll want 2 of those 3 teams to lose. It doesn't matter which team, just pick them and hope and pray that the football gods are on your side, because let's just say Colorado had as clear a path as anybody to the Big 12 title and a college football playoff, and now they are stuck playing the what if game, and that's a game that usually does not work out well. I'll just put it like that. I'm not saying it's not possible, but it's definitely a tough odds to go up against. So that's what I have to say about that. I think Colorado has a legitimate shot. I think, first of all, they're going to handle business against Oklahoma State. They have to figure some things out, which I'm going to talk about next. But they also need some things around the country to go their way as well. So when we come back, we're going to be talking about where Colorado needs to improve in order to win that final game, because if they don't, then none of this matters. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at FanDuel. And let me tell you about our sponsors over at FanDuel. They are the best place to get in on the NFL action. And with FanDuel's America's #1 sportsbook, they have new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook ad gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. I appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, so make sure to like, subscribe, follow. Just make sure to tag along. Give me the 5 stars. So that way we can continue to grow. Let's grow this popsicle stand rather than blow this popsicle stand. See what I did there? Let's grow this popsicle stand. Let's talk about where Colorado needs to improve. Obviously, and I see this in the comment section every time I talk about a subject matter like this. This isn't me saying I know better than coaches. This isn't me saying, hey, Deion Sanders, if I was a coach, I would be better than you. This is me saying this is what they struggled at, and this is what they cannot struggle at if they're going to win this next game and have any chance at contending for a Big 12 title and or the college football playoff, depending on what goes wrong. So let's dive in. First things first, they need to be better getting teams off the field, right, on third down. Kansas was 9 of 14 on third down. For the mathematicians at home, that's 64%. So basically, every time Kansas was getting a third down, they would just hand it off to Devin Neal, or they would just trust Jalen Daniels to make a play. So Kansas was super efficient on third and fourth downs. Counting fourth down, they were 11 of 16 on plays where Colorado had a chance to get them off the field. So if Colorado wants to win games, if they want to contend, you have to be able to be better on third down. Otherwise, you will be dominated physically and you will be dominating the time of possession, which only hurts your offense. Like I said on my post-game recap, Kansas had the ball for over 40 minutes and 11 seconds to be exact. Colorado had the ball for 19 minutes and 49 seconds. So, yeah, safe to say you could basically Kansas was averaging 20 minutes and per 20 minutes per half in terms of possession. Colorado didn't even get that in the entire game. Like, you can't have that, right? You have to get them off the field so you could get your offense on the field. Colorado's offense is one of the best in the country, but Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter, well, I mean, he's always on the field, so not him, but Shedeur Sanders, Will Shepherd, LeJounte Wester, those guys can't do anything when they're sitting on the bench playing on the iPad because the defense can't get off the field, right? Let's talk about the most obvious, painful one, and that is tackling. It was a rough tackling game for Colorado. They had 15 total missed tackles against Kansas. Nikai Hill Green led the way with 4, Cameron Simon Craig 3, Carter Stottmeyer 2, Chidozie Nwankwo 1, or no, he had 2 as well. Keaton Wade 1, Jalen Wester 1, Anquan Barnes, Levante Bentley. Like, you got to wrap up, right? It is what it is. I'm not trying to say I could do better, but for all those people that are going to be like, you couldn't do it. And guess what? It's not my job to do it. My job is to talk about them doing it. They need to tackle better. They need to be more technically sound in bringing guys down, right? Devin Neal, I think, probably, and I'll pull up the stats right now. I would have to guess he broke a majority of those tackles, right? He was an absolute menace during this game. He averaged 3.7 yards per carry after contact. Jalen Daniels, 8.57. So these guys were clearly feasting on the fact that Colorado could not bring them down, which is not a great position to be in because guess what? Oklahoma State has a running back by the name of Ollie Gordon. While he hasn't played well this year, because I think Oklahoma State generally has been pretty terrible compared to what we thought they'd be, Ollie Gordon is still a guy who I think people thought could win the Heisman. He's got 870 yards in the season, 13 touchdowns. But we saw him last year, and he put up monster numbers, right? Last year, he ran for 1,700 yards, 21 touchdowns on 6.1 yards per carry. So it's in there, right? On his career, he's averaging 5.5 yards per carry. He's someone who, if you do not wrap him up, he will make you pay. And I'll talk about how many, for reference, I'll talk about how his yards per contact and all that right now, because he's someone who is a game changer for Oklahoma State, right? If he's going, then everything else is easy for him, or everything else is easy for the offense. On the season, he's averaging 3.04 yards after contact, which I mean isn't crazy, but he's forced 41 missed tackles on the season. He has a season high of 13. He forced 5 against Baylor. So he is someone who is a big play waiting to happen, and if Colorado does not wrap up, that's going to be an issue. But next thing, I don't know why I said secondly, but it's dark outside. It's getting to me. Where do we need to improve? Discipline issues, right? Colorado has penalty issues. They had them last year. They have them again this year, and they're just costly. They come at all the wrong times. Not that there was ever a great time for penalties, but against Kansas, let's see how many penalties they had, because I remember it was being a lot. 8 for 65. Against Utah, a game that was closer than it should have been, 5 for 49. Utah had 3 penalties. Against Texas Tech, even though they won, 14 for 106 yards. Against Cincinnati, this was the Cincinnati was the last time they didn't have more penalties than the team they played. 5 for 68. So be more disciplined. Do not help out the opposing team. This Oklahoma State team should not be able to be on the same field as Colorado team. But if Colorado is going to not get them off the field, if Colorado's offense isn't going to execute or start faster, which is another thing that they need to do, another key to game, start faster. And if they're not going to tackle well, like, it will go rough. If they're not going to be disciplined, it will be rough. So those are my keys to the game. You guys comment below. What is the key to victory in your opinion for the Colorado Buffaloes? When we come back, we're going to be talking about Oklahoma State, my prediction, and more. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at Gametime. Let me tell you about Gametime. It's the best place to get your tickets for comedy, sports, theater, etc., whatever it is. They got the tickets. They have all-in pricing. Toggling this feature shows the total up front with no surprise freeze at checkouts. Seat views. You get a panoramic view from your seat, so you just tilt your phone a little bit. You can be like, oh, this is where I would see the 50-yard line from, or this is where I'd see, I don't know, Matt Rife from, or whatever it is. Their lowest price guarantee or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. And Gametime ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime Picks. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's game time. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. I appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. My everydayers, you know who you are. You tune in, you like, you subscribe, you comment. You guys are the best. Now, let's talk about this game against Oklahoma State. It's the regular season finale, Colorado's home game. Colorado's heavily favored. I'm going to give you guys the rundown, and then I'm going to tell you guys what I think is going to happen. So, Colorado is currently favored by 17 points, according to ESPN. ESPN's FPI gives them an 81.4% chance of winning. And in their last 5 games, Oklahoma's lost all 5. And in Colorado's last 5 games, they've won 4 out of the last 5. We're expecting a chilly game, 34 degrees. Oklahoma State's probably going to be starting a new quarterback. They have a freshman who I thought played really well against Texas Tech. He threw for 326 yards. I think his name's Malachi. That's me trying my best. I don't know. It's a name that I'm not familiar with, Malachi Smith. He is someone who is from Sacramento, California, youngster, who I think a lot of people were excited about, but they just, for some reason, didn't ride with him earlier than I feel like they should have. So, according to the pronunciation key, it's Maya Loa Kia, or Maya Loa Key. Hopefully I'm saying that right. I'm sure I'll learn about it when we have a Locked On crossover with Cody Stovall over at the Oklahoma State fella. But yeah, he played really well. I think that's the most dynamic their passing offense has looked. That being said, their defense is atrocious and they can't slow down anyone. In their past, let's see, dating back to September 28th, they have allowed 38 or more points in every single game. So their defense can't stop anyone. So if Colorado could slow down the run, if they can make Mr. Smith struggle a little bit, force him into a couple mistakes, I like how this game goes. I think Colorado covers. 17 points is a lot. But that being said, Oklahoma State has lost by an average of, well, I won't do the average right now. But last week they lost 56-48 to Texas Tech, which, as we know, Colorado, I think it wasn't as pretty as it should have been, but Colorado beat them pretty handily. TCU, which is a pretty comparable offense in a way, beat Oklahoma State by 25. And then Arizona State outscored them by 21. Baylor's outscored them by 10. So I think it can happen, right? I think this Colorado offense and I think the defense is going to come back hungry because Coach Prime said it after the game, right? He said, you guys were caught up too much in the hype. You believed in it too much, and look where it got us, right? It got us in the situation where we fumbled our goals away. We fumbled our season away in essence, right? Like Colorado, like I said on the recap show, they had a prime, no pun intended, opportunity, clear path, right? You win out, you're in. There's no, oh, we need this team to lose, we need this team to win, we need it to rain or snow on this day, and we need my dog to pee on this bush and my phone to buzz 3 times. Like, they didn't need that, but now they do. And that's a tough position to be in because guess what? It's not ideal. Like, I'll give you the chances of Colorado winning the Big 12 now, according to the ESPN FPI, because it's updated. And it's not going to be what everyone wants to hear because this is how it goes. Colorado went from having a 33% chance of winning the Big 12 to now having a 10.6% chance, which is, just last week they had the best chance of winning it, and now they have the 4th best chance with Arizona State at 31.4, Iowa State at 29.6, BYU at 25.6 or 25.9, excuse me, and then Kansas State has a 1.5% chance. So yeah, like they had a chance. They fumbled it away. They missed the opportunity, and it sucks, right? I think realistically, had Colorado come out a little bit more ready, I guess we could say, I think they beat that Kansas team. That Kansas team's not better than them. They played better than them, but they're not better than them. And so I really am confident that this Colorado team can beat Oklahoma State. I'll give you guys my score prediction later in the week, but yeah, you just got to improve. You have to be better. This is a matchup that is manageable, just like the Kansas one was. You have to come ready. And if you're not, it's going to be tough sledding, right? I appreciate you guys for tuning in, making me your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. I will see you guys tomorrow. This has been Locked on Buffs.